Now, Emmanuel Macron has called a snap parliamentary vote in France after he was heavily defeated by right-wing parties in the European elections.
Well, the French president's party suffered a humiliating defeat by Marine Le Pen's National Rally party, which received more than double his Renaissance party's vote.
Nice French accent. Now, during the shock announcement, Macron said the hard right was progressing everywhere in the continent and admitted the EU parliamentary election was not a good result for parties who defend Europe.
Alors, zut alors. But let's speak to the editor-in-chief of the Brussels report, Pieter Klepp. Thank you so much for joining us, because this is a pretty profound moment. Lots of people saw it coming, but I'm not sure anyone predicted that Macron would launch these new legislative elections, or indeed that the Prime Minister of Belgium would resign.
Well, yes, indeed. The result in France is, I would say, the most important consequence of the European Parliament elections that are otherwise not all that important, to be honest. In Belgium, it's quite different. The Prime Minister resigned after right-wing parties secured a massive victory in the national election, which took place on the same day. Now, going back to France, this may also have an impact on the possible second term of the European Commission President, Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, because she was really, let's say, the subject of a lot of criticism during the campaign in France because of the extreme green policy. So I think it may become very difficult now for Macron to support her for a second term.
And Pieter, what do you think the reason is that more and more people in Europe are choosing to vote for right-wing parties? Is it anti-immigration sentiment? Is it, as you just mentioned, the net zero debate too, those stringent targets that are coming from the European Union? Is it Euroscepticism? What do you think the most important thing is here?
Well, of course, migration and the migration chaos, the inability to secure the border, that's very important. And already you can see center-right parties shifting. You know, at the moment there are 19 European leaders that support something like the UK's Rwanda approach, which is basically about outsourcing asylum processing to stop the human smuggling problem. But then, indeed, you know, the extreme green policies, the fact that politicians would tell you to abandon your combustion engine and replace it with an expensive, complicated electric vehicle. The fact that they would force you to make very expensive investments into your home for the climate, investments that would, you know, never be profitable. I mean, I think people are sick and tired of this, and I think it's only in Denmark where the Greens have actually had a good result. Everywhere else they've been punished.
No, it is interesting to see this sort of wave of populism. But what does Macron think he's doing with this snap election? Is this to try and nip the rising right-wing party in the bud? Because in legislative elections, in each constituency, they'll need over 50% of the vote. Whereas in the European elections, it's a more proportional system. They could get away with winning on 32% of the vote.
He really had no choice. There was a lot of criticism, even inside his party, for this decision. But, you know, at the moment, Macron does not enjoy a majority in the French parliament. And at times, he already had to resort to, let's say, some dodgy procedures which allow him to bypass the national parliament, which made him even more unpopular. So, I mean, he had to go to the voter, and he's basically now hoping that this will lead to the French being afraid of the national rally and ultimately go for, you know, the devil they know.
Very interesting. And we know here in Britain, when we were members of the European Union, how differently people vote when it comes to European elections as compared to national ones. Just very lastly, a lot of conversation online and elsewhere about which parties are hard right and which parties are just right-wing or nationalist. Lots of sort of umbrella terms, hard right. Which parties are genuinely hard right that have been successful in this election?
Well, to be fair, I think you can say that the French National Rally is on the more extreme side, but they have been moderating, to be fair. That's different in Germany, where the Alternative for Germany started as a very decent Eurosceptic center-right party, but has moved, mostly driven by the Eastern German membership, to ever more extreme positions. So in other countries, in Italy, you have a tradition of post-fascist parties then morphing into the center-right. That's also happening with Miss Meloni. In Spain, the Vox party, they have some remnants of pro-Franco sentiment. But to be fair, there's a lot of very decent center-right people in that party as well. So it all depends. It's a bit of a mix, and occasionally, indeed, let's say, some more unsavory elements are roaring their heads. I think the lesson is that if these parties, if they move to the center-right, typically they become more successful. And if they stick with, their old, often clownesque habits, then, things are not going right.
Very interesting indeed. Thank you so much, Pieter Klepper from